A little girl called the wrong number at 11:47, her voice desperate with fear. "Daddy, please come to the hospital. Mommy of bleeding." The man showed up minutes later, only that he was not her dad, but the Mafia Don of the largest mafia in Chicago. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Dante didn't recognize the number. He almost didn't answer, would have let it go to voicemail like he did with everything that interrupted after business hours, but something made his thumb hover over the screen. He accepted the call, his voice rough. "Who is this?" Silence, then breathing. Small, unsteady breathing. "Hello?" A child's voice, thin as paper. Are you Dante?" His jaw locked. Wrong number. Had to be. "Who is this?" "I'm Ella," the little girl answered. "I'm your daughter, and Mommy is hurt really bad, and she's bleeding. And the doctors say she's losing lots of blood, and they need you to come sign papers, and I think maybe you need to give blood too, and please, please come, because Mommy won't wake up and—" "Kid," he cut through the spiral, sharp enough to stop her. "You've got the wrong number." "No." Her voice cracked, went high and desperate. "No, I don't. Mommy gave me this number. She always said," a wet, choking sound. She was crying. "She said you'd come if we needed you." Dante stood from his desk, the leather chair creaking in the sudden silence. In the background of the call, he could hear the distinct sounds of a hospital. That particular blend of beeping machines and hushed urgency and disinfectant that smelled like the color white. His hand tightened on the phone. "Please," the child's voice again, smaller this time, defeated. "Mommy needs you. I need you. She's going to die. You can abandon us after. Now." The words shouldn't have hit as hard as they did. He'd heard desperate pleas before. Grown men begging for their lives, women crying for mercy, children caught in crossfires of their parents' stupidity. He'd learned to let them slide off of him. But this? "I need you." The child's voice. The fact that she was ready to let go once her mom got better. He looked at his wristwatch, looked at his schedule. He heaved a sigh. Fine. He asked what hospital, as he walked toward his car, asking his driver to take him. St. Catherine. St. Catherine smelled exactly like he remembered hospitals smelling. Antiseptic, trying to mask something organic and wrong. The fluorescent lights made everyone look half dead already, all washed out skin and purple shadows. Dante moved through the emergency entrance with Marco a step behind, ignoring the "no parking" sign, the security guard's half-hearted protest. Behind it, a nurse with tired eyes and a coffee stain on her scrubs looked up, her expression shifting from routine boredom to alert wariness. "I received a call from a child named Ella about a woman who needs emergency authorization. Where?" Let me check the system. Can you tell me the patients?" "Are you my daddy?" The voice came from somewhere around his waist. Dante looked down. She was so small. That was his first thought. Smaller than he'd expected, though he hadn't really expected anything. Dark hair pulled into a lopsided ponytail, pink sneakers that had seen better days, a t-shirt with a faded cartoon character he didn't recognize. Her face, his throat tightened. She had great eyes, that particular shade of gray-green that his mother used to call ojos de tormenta, storm eyes. "How did you get my number?" he asked. "Mommy gave it to me." Her chin trembled, but she didn't look away. Brave. Stupidly brave in the way that children were, before the world taught them better. "She said you were my daddy. She said your name was Dante and you were very busy, but you loved us very much." Behind him, Marco shifted. Dante raised one finger, wait, and Marco went still. Dante thought of how he was going to break the heart of this small girl who desperately wanted to have a dad. "I don't have a daughter," he said quietly. The girl's face crumpled. Just for a second, this tiny collapse before she visibly pulled herself together, squaring shoulders that couldn't have been more than 3 feet off the ground. "But Mommy said." "Your mother is mistaken." "She's dying," she screamed, tears rolling down her face, her small hands balled into fists at her sides. "The doctors said she's dying and they need someone to sign papers and be her husband and I know you don't know me, but please, I'll be really good. I won't bother you. I just need you to help Mommy and then you can leave." And she paused, then added, looking at him, "Please?" He heaved a sigh, knowing he was getting himself into something deeper with time. "Where is she?" The girl's mouth snapped shut. She blinked, tears caught on her lashes. "4th floor, the nurse replied. "ICU, but only family members." Dante was already walking. The elevator was 20 feet away. Behind him, he heard the girl's sneakers squeaking against the floor as she ran to catch up. "Wait, please wait." He didn't slow down. The elevator doors were closing when something small and solid wedged itself between them. The doors bounced back, sensors triggered, and the girl slipped inside, breathing hard. The 3 of them stood in the confined space. Him, Marco, and this child who claimed to be his. The elevator hummed. Numbers climbed above the door. 2, 3. "What's your name?" The girl looked up at him surprised. "Ala Maria Santos. I'm 7 years old. My birthday is March 15th. A pause, then she continued. "I like strawberry ice cream, and I'm learning to read chapter books. Mommy says I'm very smart." He smiled, amused by how persistent and smart she was. "And your father?" he asked. Her hands twisted together, fingers nodding. "Mommy said he had to travel for work. A long time ago, before I was born, I think." Her voice dropped. "But she has your picture." He did not say a word. Did not know if she was lying or not. Maybe she has a picture of him, or maybe he looked like someone she envisioned as her dad. Immediately, the elevator opened. They walked in, but a nurse intercepted them immediately. "I'm sorry, but only..." Dante pulled his wallet, flipped it open, let her see the badge inside. Not a police badge exactly, but something that carried weight in the city. The nurse's face went carefully blank. "Of course, Mr. Moretti. Right this way." They walked through corridors that smelled like bleach and fear, through windows that carried patience, and they stopped. He looked at the number, room 412. Through the glass, he saw her, the mysterious woman lying unconscious. Tubes ran from her arms. Machines beeped in the steady rhythm of a heart that was still trying. Her dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. Beside him, the girl, Ella, pressed her palm against the glass. "Mommy." The word was so quiet, so devastated, that something in Dante's chest twisted. A doctor emerged, clipboard in hand. "Are you the husband?" Dante swallowed hard. He felt the girl's eyes on him, desperate and pleading, felt Marco's stillness behind him, waiting to see what he'd do. He thought about saying no, about turning around and walking away from this complication, this liability, this thing that would tie him to a woman he barely remembered and a child he'd never wanted. He thought about his own father walking away when he was 9. The sound the door made when it closed, the way his mother had cried into her hands for 3 days straight. Yes. The doctor's shoulders sagged with relief. "We need your signature on several consent forms. She's lost a significant amount of blood. We need to authorize emergency transfusions and potentially surgical intervention if the bleeding doesn't stop. Her blood type is B positive. If you're..." "I'll sign whatever you need." Dante took the clipboard, pen moving across forms without reading them. "Do it." As the doctor turned to go, Dante turned to walk away, and something tugged on his jacket. The fabric pulled taut and then released. He looked down. Ella was staring up at him, her storm gray eyes swimming with tears she wouldn't let fall. Thank you. Thank you for helping Mommy. And Dante, who'd done terrible things to terrible people, who'd built an empire on blood and fear and calculated violence, who'd learned at 7 years old that love was a luxury he couldn't afford. Dante didn't say anything at all. He just stared at her, unable to form words. He nodded slowly and took her hand as he led her away. They sat in the waiting room. Marco stood at his back, expression blank. All his meetings for today had been suspended. He watched her as she pointed at the tiles slowly, counting them. And then she would get to a point and stop, heaving a sigh because she had missed one and had to start again. How many floor tiles? Dante asked. She blinked. What? You've been staring at the floor for 10 minutes, counting. How many? She shrugged. Well, I think we have 43 or 44, wall to wall. Dante smiled as the memories came flooding back to him, how he had once been in her shoes. I used to count ceiling tiles. Hospital in Queens when I was 9, 216 in the emergency waiting room. Ella's fingers curled around the foam cup, feeling it give slightly under pressure. Why were you there? Someone got hurt. Who? A pause, long enough that Ella thought he wouldn't answer. Someone who mattered. The machines down the hall kept beeping. 17 per minute, Ella had counted. Mommy's heartbeat translated into sound, proof she was still here, still fighting. Why did you leave? The words fell out before she could stop them, before she could remember that Aunt Miriam said you don't ask strangers personal questions, even if they might be your father. Dante's jaws shifted. A muscle jumped beneath his skin. What? Why did you leave us? Her hands twisted in her lap, fingers knotting together. She'd practiced this, late at night when Mommy thought she was sleeping, in the bathroom mirror before school. But now the words felt wrong, too big for her mouth. Mommy said you had to travel, but you never came back, never called, never... Her throat closed up. Ella. Other kids have daddies, she pushed on, because if she stopped now, she'd never start again. Emma's daddy picks her up every single day, brings her cookies, and Marcus, his daddy came to our school play, even though Marcus forgot all his lines and just stood there. But I had to say my daddy was traveling, and everyone knew I was lying. I could see it. Mrs. Patterson gave me that look, that sad one, like I was something broken. The last word cracked in half. Silence, heavy as the antiseptic smell, heavy as the fluorescent buzz overhead. You didn't do anything wrong. Dante's voice was different, quieter. Then why? It's complicated. Ella wiped her nose on her sleeve. Mommy would have scolded her for that. That's what grown-ups say when they're lying. Marco made a sound. Definitely a laugh this time, strangled before it could fully form. Dante's head turned fractionally, and whatever look he gave Marco made the bigger man go absolutely still. I'm 7, not stupid. No. You're not. He stared at his hands. Large hands. Sometimes people hurt each other, even when they don't mean to. And the hurt is... He stopped. Started again. The hurt makes it impossible to stay. Did you hurt Mommy? I don't know your mother. Then how could you hurt her? His hands curled into fists against his thighs. Opened. Closed. I can't answer that. Ella's chest ached. She wanted a different answer, a better one, something that made sense of all the nights Mommy cried in the bathroom with the water running, thinking she couldn't hear her. Mommy says some questions don't have good answers, just true ones. Your mother sounds smart. She is. Ella's voice got thick. She works 2 jobs. Sometimes she falls asleep in her work clothes because she's too tired to change. And she tries so hard to make sure I have everything. But I hear her at night, crying, being sad about... She couldn't say you. The word stuck. About things. The parking lights hummed. They remained quiet before he asked her, "Do you like ice cream?" Ella's head jerked up. What? Ice cream. Do you like it? Yes. What flavor? Strawberry. The question was so unexpected she answered without thinking. With chocolate chips if they have it. Dante pulled out his phone. His thumbs moved across the screen, typing something, sending it. Then he looked at Marco. Cafeteria, strawberry ice cream, chocolate chips. Marco's expression didn't change, but something in the way he held himself suggested shock. Boss, I should stay. Now. The word was soft, final. Marco left. Ella watched him go, then turned back to Dante, confusion and something else, something warm, blooming in her chest. Why? You've had a bad night, and I was 7 once, when my mother died. The warm thing in her chest froze. Your mommy died? Yes. Did you have a daddy? He left before I was born. Ella's breath caught. So you were alone? Yes. That's the saddest thing I ever heard. It was a long time ago. But it still hurts. She said it like fact, like 2 + 2 = 4. I can tell. His eyes narrowed. Not angry, something else. How? You get really still when you talk about it. Like if you move too much, something might break. Ella picked at her shoelace. The left one had come untied again. Mommy does that too. When she talks about you, says you're traveling, but then tells Aunt Miriam you're gone. Not the same thing.
Mrs. Chen was gone. She lived across the hall, and one morning she didn't wake up, and Mommy said she was gone. But then sometimes Mommy says you're just busy, not gone. And I don't understand why the story keeps changing. Dante had gone very still, exactly the way she just described. What else did she say? About your father? That he was strong, Ella counted on her fingers. Brave, that he loved us, but sometimes love isn't enough. She looked up. Is that true? Can you love someone and still leave them?
The question sat between them like something alive. Dante opened his mouth, closed it. The muscle in his jaw jumped again. Before he could answer, Marco returned with the ice cream, handed it to Ella without a word, then took up his position by the door again. Ella stared at the parfait cup. Strawberry, studded with chocolate chips. More than 17 now. She stopped counting at 30. Thank you, she whispered. Eat. She did. Small bites. The cold helped. Made the hospital smell less strong. Made the beeping down the hall less scary. Made the possibility of losing Mommy feel just a little bit farther away. The doctor appeared while she was halfway through. Mr. Moretti. Dante stood up almost immediately. Ella followed, but... Stay here, he ordered. But I'll be right back. He left, with Marco trailing behind, and Ella was alone with her ice cream and the flickering parking lot light and the sound of her own breathing. She counted heartbeats, lost track at 93. Counted the beeps from Mommy's room, still 17 per minute. Tried to remember the prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, but the words tangled up with other thoughts. What if Mommy didn't wake up? Where would Ella go? Aunt Miriam had 3 kids already, and Uncle James works double shifts, and there was barely enough money. And Ella had heard Aunt Miriam on the phone saying, "I don't know if we can take her in. I just don't know." Dante came back a few minutes later, a smile on his face. "She's stable." Ella's hat snapped up. Dante stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. "What?" "Your mother. The transfusions worked. The doctor thinks she'll recover." Ella heaved a deep sigh of relief. She smiled at Dante, and then tears gathered in her eyes. Before she could stop herself, she was already crying. Her ice cream fell out of her hand. Dante bent to her level. "Hey, Ella." He was not good at holding this kind of conversation, of comforting someone. She wrapped her arms around him almost immediately. "Mommy is fine. She is fine." "Yeah," he nodded. "Can I see her?" she asked, pulling back, wiping the spot where her tears had touched his coat with her little pinky fingers. "Not yet. She's unconscious, but soon." Ella nodded again, couldn't stop nodding. Her hands were shaking. Dante sat back down, not 2 chairs away this time, next to her, close enough that she could see the scar on his left wrist, thin and white and old. They didn't talk for a while, just sat there with the parking lot lights humming and the machines beeping and the hospital smell making everything feel distant and unreal. "Where will you go?" Dante's voice cut through the quiet. "Home. Our apartment. Aunt Miriam might stay, to help." "Does your aunt have resources for that?" Careful question, the kind that meant something else underneath. Ella shrugged. "Aunt Marion does her best, but she's got her own family, and Mommy says we can't be a burden." "You're not a burden." "Mommy says that too. But I hear them on the phone, about money, bills, how hard things are." She pulled the thread. It came loose, unraveling. Dante was quiet so long she thought he'd forgotten she was there. Then he said, without thinking, "Come stay at my house." Ella blinked. "What?" "You and your mother, until she recovers." His voice was careful, controlled. "I have space, more than I need." "But you're not my daddy." "No." He looked at her. "But you called for help. I came. This is me still helping." "Why?" "Because you remind me of someone. A kid who was alone, who counted ceiling tiles, who had to be strong too early." "You?" Ella breathed. "You remind me of you." "Maybe." "And you don't want me to be alone." "Something like that." Ella studied his face, the sharp angles, the storm eyes, the set of his mouth that said he'd made a decision and wouldn't unmake it. It wasn't the answer she'd wanted. Wasn't "I'm your father and I love you," but it was honest, real. "Okay. Until Mommy gets better. Until then." But the words felt like a promise neither of them believed. Her mom woke up 3 hours later, a weak smile on her face. Ella ran down the hallway shouting, "Mommy!" until she got to the door. Mommy was holding the paper when Ella walked into the hospital room. "Mommy!" she screamed. "Baby." Mommy's face softened just slightly. "Come here." Ella crossed the room on legs that felt like water. Mommy patted the bed, and Ella climbed up carefully, avoiding the wires and tubes, settling against her side the way she'd done 1,000 times before. Mommy smelled different here, like hospital soap and something chemical underneath. "I found Daddy," she announced with a smile. Her mom froze. Color drained out of her skin. "What?" she asked. "I called the number you usually talked about," I thought he was Daddy. Ella's voice came out small. You always said that number was important to remember. Mommy closed her eyes. I never said it was your father's number. But you said your father died 2 years ago. Don't you remember? We talked about it. The words hit Ella, strong and hard. 2 years ago. She tried to remember. There had been a conversation, she thought. Mommy crying, something about Daddy being gone. But the details were fuzzy, wrapped in tissue paper because maybe they'd hurt too much to keep clear. You kept saying he was traveling, she whispered. I said he was gone, sweetheart. That's different. But you sometimes said he was busy. I was trying to... She stopped. Her hand, the one without the IV, came up to stroke Ella's hair. Through the thin hospital gown, Ella could feel her heartbeat quicken. The machine next to the bed confirmed it, beeping faster. So who is Dante? If he's not Daddy. Her hand stilled in her hair. Someone I knew, a long time ago. Before Daddy? A pause. Too long. It's complicated, baby. There was that word again. Complicated. The word adults used when they meant, I don't want to tell you the truth. Outside the room, Ella could hear Aunt Miriam's voice, low and urgent, then a deeper voice, Dante's. He says we can stay at his house until you're better. He has rooms for us and everything. Mommy's whole body went tense. He said that? Mrs. Chen, she's his housekeeper. She said she'd prepare the master suite for you, and I'd get my own room right next to it. And, Mommy, why are you crying? Her mom smiled, even though her eyes still held tears. I'm just tired, sweetheart. So tired. But Ella knew tired crying. This wasn't tired crying. This was scared crying. The kind Mommy did late at night when she thought Ella was sleeping, when the bills were spread across the kitchen table like accusatory papers. The door opened. Aunt Miriam came in first, her face tight with something Ella couldn't name. Behind her, Dante filled the doorway, still in that charcoal suit, still looking like someone who didn't belong in places with fluorescent lighting and plastic chairs. His eyes went to her mom first, then to Ella curled against her side. Something shifted in his expression, so quick Ella almost missed it. Mrs. Chen. His voice was different here, careful, like he was handling something fragile. Her hand tightened in Ella's hair. Why? Dante's jaw tightened. You are recovering from a significant injury. You will need time, care. Your daughter needs stability. You don't owe us anything. No, he agreed. I don't. The silence stretched. Ella could feel Mommy's heartbeat against her cheek, still too fast. Could hear Aunt Miriam's breathing, sharp with tension. Could see the way Dante's hands hung loose at his sides, relaxed, in a way that looked practiced. Miriam? Mommy's voice was quiet. Could you take Ella to the cafeteria? Get her something to eat? Mommy. Please, baby, just for a few minutes. Ella wanted to argue, wanted to stay and hear whatever adult conversation they were about to have. But Mommy's eyes were pleading, and Ella had never been good at saying no to that look. Aunt Miriam took her hand, led her out, but the cafeteria was 2 floors down, and elevators were slow, and Ella's hearing was very good. She heard them start talking before the door fully closed. Do you know who he is? What he does? I know. And you're going to accept this from him? I don't have a choice? Ella stopped walking. Aunt Miriam tugged her hand, but Ella planted her feet. Come on, sweetie. What does Mommy mean? What does Dante do? Aunt Miriam smiled. That's not... You should ask your mother. I'm asking you. Ella, is he bad? Her aunt paused. The edge of her lips tightened. The world isn't divided into good and bad people, honey. It's more complicated than that. You keep saying that word, complicated, but no one ever explains what it means. Aunt Miriam's smile was sad. It means sometimes people do bad things for good reasons, or good things despite who they are, and sometimes... She stopped, started again. Sometimes we accept help from people we wouldn't normally trust because we don't have any other options. Ella thought about this, about the way Dante had come when she called, about the ice cream with chocolate chips, about the way he signed the papers without hesitation, even though Mommy was a stranger, and Ella was a little girl who dialed a wrong number that turned out to be right. I think he's sad, not bad, sad, she said finally. Aunt Miriam blinked. What makes you say that? His eyes. They look like Mommy's eyes when she's crying in the bathroom with the water running. Her aunt stood slowly, something unreadable crossing her face. You're too smart for 7, you know that? Mommy says that too. They went to the cafeteria. Ella got chicken fingers and apple juice. When they came back, Dante was gone. Mommy was sitting up in bed, her face composed, but her hands still shaking. We're going to stay with him, just until I'm well enough to work again, just until we can get back on our feet. Okay. Ella climbed back onto the bed. How long? I don't know, baby. A few weeks, maybe a month. And then we'll go home? Then we'll go home. The mansion smelled like furniture polish and something else, something expensive that Ella couldn't name. Marco helped Mommy out of the SUV, his scarred hands gentle despite their size. Mommy swayed, her face gray with exhaustion, and for a moment, Ella thought she might fall. But Marco steadied her, one hand under her elbow, supporting her weight without making it obvious.
The front door opened. Dante stood silhouetted against warm light, still in his suit. Did he ever wear anything else? His expression unreadable. Welcome. The word should have been warm. It came out neutral instead. A statement of fact, not hospitality. A woman appeared behind him. Older, with gray hair pulled so tight it looked painful, and eyes that reminded Ella of hawks, the kind that could see mice from a mile up. I'm Mrs. Chen. I've prepared the second-floor rooms. Master suite for you, Miss Santos. Adjoining room for the girl. The girl. Not your daughter. Not Ella. Just the girl. Mommy opened her mouth, probably to protest the master's suite part, but Dante was already moving, gesturing them inside. You need rest. We can discuss details later. The foyer was bigger than their apartment, bigger than Aunt Miriam's apartment. Marble floors that Ella was afraid to walk on because what if her sneakers left marks? A chandelier overhead that looked like frozen tears, all crystal and catching light. They climbed stairs that curved like something from a movie, down a hallway with paintings that Ella didn't understand, but knew cost more than Mommy made in a year, maybe 5 years. The rooms were obscene. That was the word that appeared in Ella's mind. Not beautiful, obscene. Because no one should have this much space, this much softness, this many pillows on one bed. Mommy's room had a 4-poster bed draped in white, French doors leading to a balcony, carpet so thick Ella's feet disappeared into it. Her own room, connected by an interior door, was painted lavender. a color Ella had once told Mommy was her favorite 3 years ago when they'd passed a paint store and looked at samples they couldn't afford. How did he know that? The bookcase was full. Children's books, chapter books Ella had seen at the library but never owned. If you need anything, ask Mrs. Chen. Dante stood in the doorway, not quite entering. Dinner will be sent up in an hour. It's too much, Mommy said from the other room, her voice weak. The rooms, the books, all of it. You need to recover. Your daughter needs stability. He said it like he was reading from a list, items to be checked off. This provides both. We can't repay you. I'm not asking you to. Ella watched him from the other room, watched the way his shoulders held tension, the way his hands stayed loose but ready, the way his eyes kept sliding to the window like he was checking escape routes. Why are you doing this? She hadn't meant to ask. The question just came out. Dante looked at her, really looked at her. His storm gray eyes, the ones that matched hers even though he wasn't her father, held something she was starting to recognize. Because someone should have done it for me once, and no one did. Then he left, pulling the door closed behind him, and Ella was alone in a room that smelled like lavender and new books and possibilities she didn't know how to name. She let her mom rest and wandered around the house, smiling, looking up at the books and the ancient painting that she found fascinating, and then she paused at the library door. Dante was speaking a language made of broken glass. Italian, Ella thought. She'd heard it in movies, but movies made Italian sound like music, like something you'd sing to babies. This Italian was all sharp edges and hard consonants, words that sounded like threats even though she didn't understand them. She almost backed out, almost turned around and went back to her lavender room with its books she'd already read twice. But Dante looked up mid-sentence, held up one finger, wait, and something in his eyes made her stay. He finished the call, set the phone down on papers spread across the side. Sorry, he murmured like he owed her an explanation. It was business. Ella nodded quietly. What kind of business? She watched his face change just slightly, a door closing behind his eyes. Import and export. Smooth as the leather chair. I ran my fingers along book spines, feeling the texture shift from smooth to rough to ridged. Some were so old the titles had faded to ghosts. You have a lot of books. I like to read. Me too. I pulled one out at random. Heavy, leather-bound, gold lettering she couldn't decipher. What's this one about? Philosophy. He stood, moving along the shelves with the kind of familiarity that came from years of walking the same path. Probably not interesting to a 7-year-old. I'm very mature for my age. That ghost smile again, the one that appeared and vanished so fast she might have imagined it. I'm starting to see that. He reached past her. She caught the scent of something expensive, cologne mixed with paper and old leather, and pulled down a smaller book, worn at the edges, loved. This was mine, when I was about your age. The cover showed a boy on a dock looking at an ocean that seemed to go on forever. The title was in Italian, the musical kind, not the broken glass kind. I can't read Italian. His hand moved again, pulling down another volume. English translation. Ella took both books, holding them like they might dissolve if she wasn't careful. The Italian one felt warm, like it held the heat of all the hands that had touched it before. Thank you. Do you like stories about adventure? She thought about this, about the books in her room at the apartment, library books mostly, returned before the late fees piled up. I like stories about kids who are brave, who do hard things even when they're scared. Dante studied her face, really studied it, like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. Are you scared, Ella? The question was direct, no dancing around it, no softening. Adults usually ask questions they didn't want real answers to. This felt different. Sometimes. She clutched the books tighter. I was really scared at the hospital when Mommy wouldn't wake up. And I'm scared about. She stopped, started again. About what happens after. After? After here. After Mommy gets better and we have to leave. Something flickered across his face, too fast to catch, but there. Your mother says being scared is acceptable as long as it doesn't stop you. Ella's head jerked up. How did you know she says that? You told me at the hospital. Had I? The hospital felt like it happened years ago, not days. Everything before the lavender room felt fuzzy, wrapped in tissue paper. Can I ask you something? The words flowed out before she could stop them. Yes. No, maybe. No, depends what it is. Just yes. Why did you come? When I called, you didn't know us. You could have just hung up. Dante walked back to the window, put his hands in his pockets. The gesture looked practiced, like he'd learned to keep them there to stop them from doing other things. When I was 8, he said to the glass, to his reflection, to something Ella couldn't see, I watched my mother die. The words landed heavy. Ella felt them, a sharp pain in her chest. Not fast. Cancer. We didn't have the money for the good hospitals, the real treatment, just the bed in a place that smelt like. He stopped. His jaw worked. Like they'd given up before we even got there. Ella wanted to say something, couldn't find words big enough. When you called, he continued, still not looking at her, you sounded like I felt, like someone drowning, and I thought. His hands came out of his pockets, one of them rubbing the back of his neck. I thought maybe I could stop it, just once. I'm sorry your mommy died.
It was a long time ago, but it still hurts. She'd said this before, at the hospital. It felt more true now. You don't forget people you love just because time passes. He turned then, looked at her with those storm gray eyes that matched hers, even though they weren't related. No, he said quietly, you don't. Can I stay? She gestured at the chair near his desk. Too big for her, but everything here was too big. While you work, I'll be quiet. He paused, thinking about how it would feel to let a small, innocent child into his world. You can stay. So she curled up in the leather chair with Pinocchio, and Dante went back to his papers, his phone calls in languages that shifted like water, and the library filled with a different kind of silence, the kind that felt like company instead of loneliness. It became routine after that. Ella would check on Mommy, pale but getting stronger, her laugh returning in small doses, then find Dante, the library, his office, with its massive desk and computer screens that showed things she didn't understand. Once the garden, where he paced like something caged while talking on his phone. He never sent her away. On the 5th day, everything changed. Dante appeared in the library doorway wearing jeans. Jeans? Ella stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Why are you dressed like this? Ella asked as she looked at him. She was used to seeing him in trousers and suits, and nothing so casual. He shrugged with a smile and walked up to her. Well, I am free today, and I decided to take my baby out. He reached out to her and tickled her. When she did not laugh or say a word, Worry shadowed his face. "What's wrong?" he asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. It's just that—" She paused and turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "When we leave, when Mommy's better, will we still see you?" She waited for his answer. A rejection. She braced herself for whatever he would say. After all, she didn't own him anything. Dante set his pen down and looked at her. "Do you want to?" "Yes." No hesitation, no cushion, just truth. "I like it here. I like having dinner together. I like when you explain the hard math problems. I like—"
Her voice got smaller. "I like having someone who feels like a dad, even if you're not really." "Yes." She stopped. "What?" "Yes, to all of it. School plays, visits, whatever you need." He paused, and Ella watched him struggle with something, choosing his words. "You're right. You're not my family. Not by blood. But that doesn't mean I don't care about what happens to you. Both of you." Ella felt tears building. Hot. Sudden. "Really?" "Really." She ran out of her chair and jumped into Dante. Dante froze. He always did at first, like affection was a language he'd forgotten. But then his arms came up, tentative, then sure, holding her close. "Thank you," she whispered into his shirt. It smelled like that expensive cologne, like safety. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for saving Mommy. Thank you for being you." When she pulled back, his eyes looked wet. He blinked fast. "Go on." His voice was rough. "It's almost bedtime." "Okay." She walked to the door, then turned. "Dante, I know you think you're dangerous, and maybe you are to some people, but to me, you're just the person who came when I called, and that makes you a hero, even if you don't believe it." She left before he could answer, but she felt his eyes on her back all the way down the hallway. That night, lying in her lavender room with Peanut beside her, Ella listens to voices through the wall. Mommy's room, Dante's deeper tones. She couldn't hear words, just the rhythm of conversation. She wondered what they were saying, about staying or leaving, about danger and safety, and what those words even meant anymore. Eventually, exhaustion won. Ella drifted off to sleep. Downstairs, the conversation continued. Mommy and Dante, as they made decisions in hushed tones. They weren't leaving. Not today, not next week, maybe not ever. Because sometimes the life you planned wasn't the life you needed. And sometimes the stranger who answered a desperate phone call became the person you couldn't imagine living without. But those realizations took time, and time was something they finally had. Thank you for staying till the end of the video. If you loved it, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, share your thoughts about the show and tell us where you're coming from.